Thank you, Miss Carter, for taking the time to interview with me today. I hope it's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you a couple questions for my interview for my class, and I definitely want you to give you your honest answers. If you feel free to wing it if you want to, I'm pretty sure you're going to do really well. So, for starters, can you tell me about yourself?
My name is Mia Carter, and I am entering my, what year is this? 18th year of teaching. I've taught middle school and high school. I didn't start out being a teacher. I started out I majored in accounting, but I was going back to school to become a teacher because I thought that maybe something I wanted to do. So I was a lateral entry teacher, and I've taught only high school and middle school throughout my career. And as a lateral entry teacher, it was a little bit difficult, but back then this was in 2007. It was they had programs where you could go through in the school system that I worked for.
Okay. Describe your personal and educational background.
My personal background is I've graduated from A&T with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, concentrating in management. I worked in the corporate world for a while before I became a teacher. Then I went back to school and I got my Master of Arts in Teaching and from North Carolina A&T State University in Business Education. And I went back to school. I'm a lifelong learner, so I like going to school. I even go to the community colleges. So I got another master's degree in educational media from Appalachian State University.
Okay. All right, then. So, can you describe a positive core memory from your K through 12 experience?
That was so long ago, but as I remember, I think that I kind of really what was very positive for me, and I had positive experiences. So my educational experiences, they've been pretty positive for the most part. But a positive memory that I had was when I went to middle school. It was junior high school at the time, and then I had to take a class, and this is what led me to major in business, and along with what my mom said I should do as well, and some of her influence is that I had a teacher that taught. His name is Mr. Ray, and he taught a class where we would go in and operate business. It was a business class. So we would go in and operate like all of the equipment in the classroom. Like I think it was like one of those cash register calculator. I can't remember what it's called now, but we had to operate one of those. And I used to be so excited. I would rush to class. I can't wait to get into Mr. Ray class because I'm going to be keying on this, on this calculator that had the receipt paper that came out of it. So I was very excited about that. And it was like a drill where I would just, like learning how to do the 10 key. So that was very positive for me because that's what I remember. And I remember being eager to go to school just to learn, about those things.
Okay. So what was a negative memory from your K through 12 experience? What did that look like for you?
A negative memory, let me think. A negative memory from my K through 12 school experience. I think that one that I remember, and I'm not sure why, because it happened in kindergarten when I was in kindergarten, and I loved my kindergarten teacher. Her name was Miss Light. I loved her class. I loved being in her class, and I was so dainty at the time, but I had a classmate that used to, like, they would do mean stuff to me with that, and I didn't know it until it was over and done with. And I realized because my teacher would always kind of intervene, and I a lot of times I didn't know, but she stole my ice cream money, and before I realized it, it was already, it had already been taken care of. And I'm just like, I was standing there like, oh, okay, she took my ice cream money, but I didn't know it until after the fact. So that was negative for me, and I think that it did in kindergarten. It did, and because as a young learner, it did impact me. Like I think throughout, because I was always a little, I feel like I was a little shy and withdrawn throughout my educational experience. I just had a small circle. I wasn't the one that talked in class. I wasn't gonna do anything crazy in class, or I wasn't gonna disappoint my parents or my teachers.
I got you. So, what led you to education?
What led me to education? Now, starting out before I went to college, my mom was like, "You should be a teacher," and I said, "No, I'm never going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an accountant." and and that's what I majored in, accounting. My mom always said, "You should be a business education teacher." I was like, "No, I don't want to do the teaching thing." So I think that I'm not exactly sure what clicked in me to become a teacher, because I was always one that, that liked to teach others something. But it just wasn't that I thought that I was going to be the one to actually teach others, teach others how to learn, and providing learning experiences for others. I think that when I was working working for the North Carolina Department of Labor, I decided, you know what, I think that I may want to be a teacher, because at the time I looked at the salary was pretty decent then. And, when I looked at the long term of it, I'm off in the summers, I get off major holidays, things like that. Although a teacher's work is never done, you work outside of school, you work on your holidays or whatever, you're always thinking about something that's going to impact student learning. And I think that what really did it for me was that I like change, and I don't like the environment to stay the same. And that's what I was getting from being in the business field, or in the accounting, as an accounting major. Like, everything was the same in education and teaching young learners and new learners. Then no day is ever the same. So that's what I love about it too.
Okay.
And that's what kind of influenced me a lot, is that I know tomorrow is going to be different. Even if today was a bad day, tomorrow is going to be a good day. And, vice versa. Even if today is a good day, tomorrow might not be so good.
Amen.
Sometimes you got to plan for, what you don't expect. But that's the part that I love about it.
Okay. Amen to that. So take me to a regular work day for you. What is a typical work day for you?
A typical work day for me. So I like to get to work early. So my day I get to work about 7:00. Although we're not supposed to be there until 8:15, and then students arrive around 8:30. So I like to get to work early and make sure I have my plans for today, exactly what the learning experience is going to be for today. And I try to plan for things that could happen, like technology could fail and things like that. So I always like to have a backup. And then I teach a career management class, and I like it because it gives a variety. But a typical work day for me would be, I teach one class. We're on block for 90 minutes. And then I teach two classes back to back for 90 minutes. And then I have my lunch and planning. And then I teach a fourth block class. And at the end of the day, I usually stay after and kind of tidy up a little bit, plan for it. You make sure I have my plans for the next day, but I like to plan like a week ahead of time. And in case something happens, I could kind of see how I can rearrange when I put it in like a calendar form. See how I can rearrange my day or the next week in order to provide that learning opportunity for students.
Okay. What is your educational philosophy?
My educational philosophy is that I think that all students are capable of learning, provided that they have a nurturing environment, an environment where they can, they feel safe, and they feel, trusted, and they can trust you. And I think that also, if students are challenged, so even though you think that students want something easy, they do not. They would. I feel like students need to be challenged, and I think the learning opportunity should host a variety of learning opportunities.
Okay. Is your educational philosophy influenced by an educational theorist? Why or why not?
I think that it is. I think that, and I think it's more than one. I think I like the Maria Montessori way, because kids learn, they learn on their own. I also like yeah, that would be mainly the one that I think that would resonate with me because I think that, you know, I like an environment where you don't keep them like at one place. You have learners that need to move on, and I think in Maria Montessori way, I think that the learning experience is mainly focused on like it's the student that's learning. It's centered around them because they're able to move on as they need to. Like if it's higher, then they can go higher. So I love that about Maria Montessori.
In your opinion, how do students learn in an educational setting and why?
I think students learn in a variety of ways. Just because they're learning one way today may not be they may not be the particular way next week or the week after next. It just depends on what kind of day they had or what kind of learning experience they had. But I always think that I believe that students, they need to be challenged, and that's the things that they love, is to be challenged. And I think they love to reflect on their learning, and I think they love it when a peer is teaching them as well. I think you have to have a variety.
Okay. In your opinion, what is the ideal relationship between a student and a teacher?
I think that the ideal relationship is, I think the teacher should be the facilitator of learning. I think that you provide instructions, but I think that you want them to have a higher depth of knowledge. So I think that the relationship should be a relationship of mutual respect. And, you know, students know when you respect them, and they know how to handle themselves in certain situations. If it's not an environment of respect, I think that has to be taught early on. It has to be demonstrated. You have to show them, and then you also have to provide opportunities for them to be able to ask you any question that they would like, any question that they ask. There's no question that's a dumb question. I think that it should be a positive, nurturing environment, the relationship with students and teachers.
Okay. And what do you feel your role is in communicating with the families?
I think families play a big role in the success of student learning. And, although all situations are not the same and some of them are a little different, you may have parents that are working by the time their child gets out of school, but they still doesn't mean they don't want to have a part into their child's educational experience. I think that parents should be contacted not only for the bad news, but they need to be, they need to be contacted when you want to celebrate. You have to celebrate all of your students.
Okay. And for you, what do you feel, how often, I should say, are you communicating with these families, and for what reasons do you do so?
I think you communicate with parents regularly, provided that some parents may not know a lot about their child's educational experience because they may have work, and then by the time they get off work, the child may be asleep. I think that when you involve like the families in the learning, it makes it a more positive and nurturing learning environment, because they see that my parents care, my teacher care, everybody, all these people are caring about me, and I think students love that, and then that's how they can thrive in an educational atmosphere.
Okay. How do you access the students' progress?
How do I access the student process? Progress. Okay. So, formative and summative assessments are needed. I do not believe in, strictly formative assessments for students because, like some students may have, testing anxiety. Anytime you say, I'm having a major test, and I always call it like, I'm going to have an assessment tomorrow or next week, or I think that I do formative and summative assessments. Some of them I gauge on how they respond to me in the lesson, so I can gauge if they really have it in the type of questions that they ask. If they're thinking deeper on the subject instead of just, like what's in just the black and white.
Okay. How do you keep students from being bored with your lessons?
Yes. So they're not gonna like all your lessons. Sometimes and students don't like when you have, they like a set routine, but when it comes to learning and the material that you give, like you're not gonna give them a PowerPoint to learn from every day. I think you have to differentiate learning. You have to have a variety. You have to incorporate things that, even although I teach high school, sometimes they like little stickers in high school, and sometimes they like little crossword puzzles and word searches, so things like that. I think you have to have a variety of teaching methods and material in order to keep students from being bored. And you also have to gauge whether or not, like, they already know this information, so now they're going to become bored because I already know this, but then some part they may not know. Then you're going to have to kind of keep them from losing interest in the lesson.
Okay. And what assessment tools do you use regularly to monitor your students' academic progress?
I use a ticket in the door, ticket out the door, random, like I'll spin a wheel, like when I see that only the one or two students are always participating, I have a method of like picking the ones that don't, like, that may not raise their hand. Doesn't mean they don't know the answer. They just not going to participate, because I think that I was one of those students, like, I'm not going to participate unless the teacher asks me. So then you'll get, like, you keep them on their toes and thinking on their toes whenever like it's random. Like, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to ask you questions after you look at this video or after this lesson, and throughout the lesson I'm spinning the wheel, and then it may be you. It's just random, so they won't think that you're always picking on them. It comes up as random.
Okay. And describe a time for me when the lesson wasn't just, it just fell flat. And what did you do about it?
Now, I teach one prep to two different classes. Now, it just depends on how they're getting it. Even if I'm giving it out, I'm instructing the lesson the same way. I think that one time I was teaching a lesson. I was teaching in Microsoft Excel class. One of my kids, one class of kids, they got it. They were asking questions. Oh yeah, I see how this go together. Oh, like they got it. But I had another class, did not get it. I could not. And I think that me as an educator, I got kind of like, I can't believe you all don't understand. Like, I'm telling you the same way as I told as I instructed your peers. But one class just didn't get it. It may have been the time of day. It could have been after lunch or at the end of the day, or I can't remember what time of day it was. But then I had to reflect, and I had to, after the lesson, I reflected, like, what did not go well with this lesson? What went well with the lesson? What didn't go well? And I had to compare the two classes of why this group of students didn't understand the way that I provided instructions to them, and why this group of students did. But it's because they were different learners. They had different experiences before they got to class. Like, I had one at the beginning of the day, one at the end of the day. So I think that kind of, I had to do a lot of reflecting, and then I decided that can't teach, even though it's the same subject, can't teach them the same way, because I have different learners in different learning environments.
I see. Today, what would you say was your best and worst teacher's experience?
Me as a teacher, I think that I'm human. Like, teachers are human, believe it or not. Teaching is our superpower. But I think that when you don't have like a positive relationship with students, like, it's for some reason the two of you don't, you and a student don't get along. You can't understand why. Sometimes you get along, sometimes you don't. I think that you should never match their energy. I think you should have, like, a calm tone whenever you have to have hard conversations with students about their academics or their behavior, whatever it is that you would like, because it depends on how you say it. And plus, you can say anything that you would like as long as you're polite about it. People are listening. I think they still want to believe that you care, even if they're not being, the best, in the best mood that they can be. I think they still need to know that you still care, and it's nothing personal.
Okay. Explain how you would adapt a lesson for a special needs student. So it doesn't have to be a student with disabilities. It could be possibly a gifted student or a talented student. How would you adapt
You have to
that?
get to know your student. You have to know the way that they learn. You need to know something about the way that they learn, what their personality type is, things like that. And I think that when you're in a classroom, you have 25 or 30 students in a classroom. You're gonna get students that have different learning needs and different learning abilities, but they're all capable of learning. But it's a way that you have to present it to them. And I think that like just definitely monitoring students to see, are you understanding this, and make sure you pay closer attention to the way that they learn. And I think that's something that you need to know ahead of time. You need to know your students in order to adapt your learning that's tailored to them.
Okay. What do you consider yourself as the most effective teaching strategy, and why?
I think the most effective teaching strategy is use different types of learning, like cater to different learning styles. And I think that should be included in your entire lesson. In whatever lesson you're teaching, you have to make sure you have something for all learning styles. So you have to make sure that your lesson is going to tap into those that learn by doing, those that learn by doing, those that learn by seeing, things like that. You have to make sure those that learn by listening to the lesson. So you do have to include that in all of your lessons.
What strategies do you use to get to know your students at the beginning of the year?
At the beginning of the year, of course we do, and because I teach a business class, I like to incorporate things that businesses do when they're getting to know you. When you go to a workshop and they have these fun little games that you play to get to know your students, I think you get to know them by knowing what type of what their learning style is. So I think that's very important. And then I think you get to know them by showing them that like that they're important to you and you're happy to have them in your class. So at the beginning of the year, I usually always start out with a learning style. I need to know what type of learning I have in my class. I need to make sure that I cater to all learning styles, but if I have a majority of one or the other, then I need to make sure that I'm doing stuff that's catering to their learning style. And also you have to know their personality type. And some things you just get to know over time. But when students feel safe in your classroom, then you get to know them. It takes a little bit of time, but you do get to know them.
How do you handle behavioral issues in your class?
Behavior issues, I think it comes from a mutual respect. I always try to keep a calm tone. And I am a teacher of many chances, so it's not, and I was in an environment where I had to teach a student that was OCS, and this was at they didn't have an OCS program, but this student was in one of the middle colleges that I taught, and I know that he would STEM in class and things like that, and I think that what was important for me in order to make sure that his learning needs were met is that he believed that he could trust me. We had an incident where like he told me to call his mom. I said, okay, I'll do it later. And then he kept asking me, are you gonna call my mom? And then like after that, he understood that every time you do something in my class, it doesn't constitute me calling your mom or calling the principal in order to effectively manage your behavior. Like, I understand you had, like you get another chance. I don't hold that. I don't hold grudges, and I don't hold it against them. We start a new day right after the incident. Everything is all clear. So I think that they handle behavior problems when letting students know that you get chances with me. You're human.
Mm-hmm. Just clarify for the record, what is an OCS student?
Occupational course of study. They usually have some brain based trauma or injuries.
I see. What strategies do you employ to maintain order in your classroom?
I think that it has to be structured. I think that it has to be community rules where we make the rules together. So if students know that we made these rules together, like they buy into it, not that you're just sitting there saying like these are rules, that's it, not up for discussion or debate. I think that when you make rules and as a community, it's a lot more effective.
Okay. And I got one last question for you. What type of student do you like to work with? And please tell me what type of students you believe that you can teach most effectively.
I like working with a variety of students. Like I like working with all students. I mean, I think that they're all valuable, and I think they give valuable input to the classroom. So there's not one particular type of student that I enjoy working with. I enjoy working with all students, and because I like that change, and I like a variety of, like I don't like for everything to just be the same all the time. So a variety of students.
Okay. Well, thank you for a moment of your time, Miss Mia, or should I say Miss Carter?
You know, it's fine.
But thank you so much for taking time to interview with me today, and I'm excited to get to know you more today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.